Welcome down the warp pipe. In case you're new, I'm Ty. And if not, great to see you again. Graphics preferences seem to have been creeping into console games over the last 5 or so years, and it appears that they're here to stay now. So, as someone who grew up playing both console and PC games, I wanted to give my 2 cents for how I think this feature should be standardized across all games that are going to offer it on console. It's great that games are offering an option for players to choose how they want to experience a game in terms of frame rate, resolution, and graphical features now. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart from Insomniac seems to be closest to how I would like things to be implemented, offering options for 4K 30 with all the bells and whistles, ray tracing at reduced resolutions in order to allow for 60 frames a second, and even having a 120 Hz mode available that runs the game at 40 frames a second, because 120 frames a second in a AAA blockbuster isn't always the most realistic option. But I think we can open up the options a little bit more for players while still keeping things simplified, using the traditional low, medium, and high options while offering 3 different settings that you can choose from and having each one be set to either low, medium, or high, allowing you to balance the game the way you would like. So let's bring up those settings and go through each of the options here. The first is going to be lighting and reflections. This is really straightforward, as it's the option that's going to allow you on low to pare things back and have it experience the way that the previous generation console did. You're not taking advantage of any ray tracing, but you're not getting the most performance hit for those visual bells and whistles. Medium is going to allow for the ray tracing and additional reflections to be built into the game, but at a lower resolution so that they're not expending the most performance. And high is going to go for full maximum resolution on all of the fancy lighting, shadows, and reflections that you see in your game, allowing it to look really pretty in screenshots. Next up, we're going to have resolution. This one's pretty straightforward. Basically on low, you're getting a dynamic resolution, maybe something hovering around 1080p, but it allows the game to run at higher fidelity for the graphical settings and better frame rate. Medium, on the other hand, is something that maybe it isn't going full 4K. Eventually, maybe this will be the 4K setting and 8K will be the high setting, but for now, this is likely to be a 1440p dynamic resolution, very similar to the low setting, but just a little tiny bit more crisp. High is going to be your 4K native option. This is going to allow people with older 4K TVs, or even those with more inexpensive TV sets that don't have as good pixel structure. Link in the below pinned comment for my video explaining what pixel structure is and how it's a great way to decide how to pick out a gaming monitor or TV. However, this is going to be the option for those people and allow it to look its best. Most likely the one that's going to be used in screenshots and trailers. Last but not least, we're going to have frame rate. This is going to be the most tricky of the options to keep limited to 3, but we can still totally do it. Low is going to be your 30 frames a second. This is really straightforward. You're getting the best visuals with the lowest possible frame rate, and it's going to be great for those that play JRPGs, turn-based games, or just really want to experience the story and let everything else go. However, medium is going to be a little bit of a different story, as depending on the game, if it's a big AAA blockbuster, this might be your 40 frames a second mode like's been seen in Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. However, in some games, this will be your 60 frames a second mode, for example, something like Nioh 2. This is easily denoted by the developer just putting a little extra text below, either denoting 40 frames a second or 60 frames a second. High, however, is also going to be a little more complicated, as for a big AAA blockbuster, this is going to be your 60 frames a second option. But for a smaller game, or maybe one that favors fast action like a multiplayer shooter, racing game, or even something like Nioh 2 as previously mentioned, this is going to be your 120 frames a second mode. Those are the ways that we can keep the options really limited and straightforward by allowing for low, medium, and high settings, and balance them depending on the experience that you as the player want. But let me know down below what you would do, and if you prefer keeping things with the simple select a performance mode and a few different modes available depending on the game developer and what they've included, or if a standardized system like this would be more up your alley. And I'll see you on next Saturday for a short, and Games Tuesday as always for a brand new video.